The filming for Superman continues
The
in
new
downtown
Superman
Cleveland.
movie.
It's a Superman movie taking over downtown Cleveland.
Hello and welcome to Post Credits. I'm your host Corinne, and with me today I have our co-host Ben Stoughton, and also as our special guest today we have Bill Garvey. He is the president of the Greater Cleveland Film Commission, and he also worked extensively with location management within film. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience within film.
Sure. So I started a long time ago. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I've had the privilege of working with some pretty incredible filmmakers over that time, working on roughly 43 feature films, 12 TV shows, commercials, documentaries throughout the country. So, how did I get into it? It's a kind of a long roundabout way. But the short story of it was I was a movie buff in college. There happened to be a filming at my college, and I was taking the one of the few film classes that my college offered at the time, and my professor had the director lecture the class about how he made his living in the film business. And I was a business major, and I had the epiphany that, hey, I could do something I loved and still do something that was related to my field, so business. And, just to highlight this industry, it's an art form, but it's very much a business. And it takes an army of people to put together these features, these TV shows. It's a very collaborative industry, and all these jobs are very creative. And what I really enjoyed about it, getting into the business, from the bottom up, working my way up, all the creative jobs that most people don't know about, and that's what we try to promote in the Greater Cleveland Film Commission. We are an economic development organization trying to bring investment through production into our region and create jobs. That's what it's about. It's about the jobs created and the high-paying jobs at that. This industry pays 80% of the jobs in the industry. Hundreds of jobs in each production pay a minimum salary of $37.76 an hour, plus a pension and health insurance. And there's not too many industries that offer a pension anymore, but the film business is definitely one of them, and it's a growing industry. It's doubled in size in production spending globally over the last decade. From $128 billion in 2013 to $248 billion globally. And we've experienced a similar amount of growth. The way that we drive business here at the Film Commission is it's through relationships with studios and producers, but it's also using the tool of the state program, the production incentive program that the state offers to use that as a tool to get production to come here. There's 38 states around the country that offer production incentives, and luckily Ohio is one of them. And because of that, $1.5 billion in economic output has been generated over the last 16 years of the program, and a significant portion of that comes to Northeast Ohio. Last year, we generated $53.1 million in direct spend. So that means it's not a guess, right? So when we talk about our numbers, we get production audits that each production has to fill out at the end of the production. They submit it to the state. So we know down to the cent how much is spent and how many jobs are created. And that was to the tune of $53.1 million last year, and the year before $77.8 million, and thousands of jobs. And they're all high-paying jobs.
As part of the incentive, do the productions that come out of state, are they incentivized to hire locally?
They are. Yeah, because, look, you're a producer, you're coming to a state from California, from New York, from Europe, from wherever. Do you want to spend the extra money to bring in people, fly them in, put them up in a hotel, pay them per diem, rent a car for them, pay them idle days? So all these union crew members, they're paid for the days off. So that's a significant cost. producers are incentivized to hire local crew because it saves them money. Now, it matters whether you have local crew that know how to do the job, right? So it's not just a warm body that they're looking for. They're looking for crew members that have the skill set. And the other thing that we do at the Film Commission is training. And we've partnered not only with really great colleges and high schools that are training towards these jobs, but we've also created our own programming to provide skills to locals to get these jobs. And we just ran our last production workshop. 247 people registered for that and went through the program. We bring in very high-profile producers, assistant directors, production managers to teach with us. And this year we were fortunate enough that David Lester, the production manager from Star Wars, the original Star Wars, can you imagine, who also is from Northeast Ohio, came in to help us teach. You can't imagine how wonderful it is to have that kind of level talent coming in with the expertise to teach kids on how to do this, how to survive in this industry, and build the skill sets that will make them double the median salary for the state of Ohio. So that's another part of what we do that's very essential to the success and why we've gotten so much of the percentage of production that's approved to shoot in Ohio to come to Northeast Ohio.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I saw somewhere that it said that for 13 years you worked in the industry, but you worked primarily in Ohio. Like you didn't have to go anywhere.
Exactly.
You want to talk a little bit about how that's possible? Because people are like, I have to move to Hollywood. I have to move here. I have to move there.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, and it goes back to the origin story of me, right? So when I got into the film business, there was no film commission like us training, providing resources, and kind of a one-stop shop for how to do this business. It wasn't any of that in New York where I started. It was everybody, fend for yourself. It's a race to the death.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
And when I got in, I struggled. I had to work for free just because I didn't have anybody I knew working in the business. I worked for free to kind of gain some level of knowledge, and then finally I hooked on with a location manager, and getting back to the locations foundation of my skill set, worked with a location manager who was making a comedy called Half Baked. It's kind of a cult classic on Comedy Central.
I have seen it.
And so we worked on that. Dave Chappelle, an Ohio tie, right? Dave Chappelle from Ohio is the star. And, through that relationship and knowing that, hey, this guy, he's doing this at a high level. And I just hitched my wagon and sponged up all the knowledge from him that I could, right? So the programming that we've created at the Film Commission tries to mimic the mentor relationship that I had getting into this business. And, I came up and I, worked on 6 years of production with him. We did, back in the day when made-for-TV movies were big, and broadcast made-for-TV movies were a big deal. We made a TV movie about John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano. And then we got The Hurricane, a Denzel Washington movie, which was nominated for Academy Awards, won Golden Globes. And at that point, his star was really rising because he was moving up the ladder in the business. That was also in the 90s when TV wasn't what it is today. It wasn't higher budget A-list actors. It was very much a second tier job. And we were on features, and the Hurricane movie, the production, because of Denzel's availability, it finished after Christmas. So it finished well into January, which was unusual because most movies finish before Christmas so that you're not carrying your actor salaries, your equipment rental, your trucking, your parking lots and office space, all that stuff that doesn't go up on screen. You don't want to carry that as a producer, right? So most production finished filming before Christmas. Well, this one didn't. And because of that, we were out of the cycle and not available for the next batch of features starting up in January to prep. And the only thing that was available to us was a TV show. And, at that point, again, TV wasn't what it is now. And so that TV show, it had kind of an opera theme. And I was, my boss comes to me and says, this is our next job. I'm like, oh, opera, TV, oh. And so I looked around for an alternative job and on a feature, of course, and couldn't find one. I missed my opportunity. And so here I was stuck on this TV show. Well, the TV show turned out to be The Sopranos. So
Not
didn't
quite
realize
opera.
what it would be, and we were really off to the races after that. So the foundation that I learned from a mentor in New York, I ended up branching out, raising up to the level of location manager myself, and traveling around the Northeast, working on many features, many productions all over the place, and finally came to Ohio. My wife is from Cleveland. Came to Ohio, and for 13 years, as you say, I never had to look outside of Ohio for work. It was, the industry had finally arrived in Ohio. We had the tax incentive. I arrived at the same time the tax incentive was introduced, and because of that, it was a 13-year run of, high salaries, a lot of work, and with me, a lot of other veteran crew has built a whole resume out of that. And, that's the great thing. That's another tool that we use to go out and pitch Northeast Ohio, because we do have a veteran crew that's been on a lot of production. And that's important. That is, what producers look for. They look for a region that has a tax incentive. They look for a region that has a veteran crew base. And they look for a region that has the aesthetics, the architecture. And the other great advantage that we have in Northeast Ohio is that we have almost every architecture that you could ever want, and it's that versatility that's made us a pretty great reputation in this business, and that's another reason that we get repeat business and so much production coming here over the last 16 years.
So I have a quick question about locations. What's the best location that you've ever found? You thought, this is so unique, and they just ate it up and they loved it. Which one did you just comb through till you found it and it was great?
Well, I didn't find it, but it is the most unique location on the planet, not just here, not just what I've found, but on the planet. And I mean it. Did you ever see the opening sequence of The Avengers?
Yes.
Okay, the opening sequence of The Avengers, the Tesseract is stolen, right, from a giant dome-like structure. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that dome is Northeast Ohio, and it's NASA Plumbrook. It's in Sandusky, and it's the most unique location I've ever seen in my entire life. It is gorgeous.
Nice.
And that location was, again, a calling card. It's a giant billboard saying, wow, come to Ohio, look at this. The most high-profile movie of its year when it came out, The Avengers, was the most unique location in the most unique movie, right? And the history behind it is just fascinating because, leading up to World War II, the government was looking for interior spaces that would be protected from the coasts in case there was an invasion to manufacture munitions. And so they came to farmland in Sandusky and said, this is a great spot. And so they bought up a whole bunch of farmland to create a munitions plant, which it was functioning as such for a long time. And then in 1952, the president gave a speech at the UN called Atoms for Peace. And in this speech, he and this was after the atomic age, right? And in the speech, he talks about how we're going to leverage this new technology and kind of bring it to the masses. And to do this, they commissioned 8 nuclear test reactor plants to be built around the country, and NASA Plumbrook was one of them before it was NASA. And so they built this giant 200-foot tall chamber in which they were going to have this test reactor. And then by the time they had finished building it, JFK was president, and they were reassessing their idea of putting nuclear technology into airplanes and cars and refrigerators, which was the initial plan, and said, well, we might not do that after all. But they did have this giant steel and concrete structure, so they repurposed it, and now they use it to test rocket fuselages. It is absolutely the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
How hard is it to get in there to shoot?
Well, you work with the Department of Defense, and they have a film office that's dedicated to this kind of thing across the nation. So it's a standard procedure, and it actually was pretty seamless.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's interesting. I would have never thought that there was a department for that. But you learn that for being like location management.
Yeah.
And that's a job that many people who don't know about films wouldn't know existed.
Exactly.
Can you explain why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, these jobs are important because they're high-paying jobs that are available, but nobody knows about them. And, part of as a film commission, we're very small. We don't have an advertising budget, so it's hard to get the message out there that you can do this. It's not, you don't need a master's degree to do it. Some education is important, and we collaborate with universities here and high schools and our own programming to teach those skills. But, they are all highly paid skills. They are very cool and creative skills. And, case in point, location management, it melds the business side of my brain with the artistic side of my brain. So that at the beginning of the project, I'm working with the director and the production designer in my former life to break down the script, to assess their vision of what each scene in that script is going to look like, and go out into the real world and find that. So in the case of the Avengers, when I read the script and saw Loki's lair, obviously there's the creative side. How do you can't look it up on the internet, find Loki's lair, and then everything pops up that's available for that, right? So you have to be creative. And we went out into the real world and found that. And then once the director and production designer they lock their locations, they've settled on the ones they like from the ones that we present them, then that job switches to logistics, to contract negotiation, permitting, all the logistics of moving a company of 200, 300, 400 people in and out of each of the locations on that movie. So it's a very interesting, rewarding, and lucrative job. And there are many other jobs just like that in this industry, and they're local jobs, and they're folks that are your next door neighbors that are working in this industry, and you might not even know it.
Can you name some other jobs within the film industry that are not on the top of people's minds?
Sure. Grips, electricians. Electricians aren't like licensed electricians that are, tying into house power. Their electricians are lighting people. Grips are light and shadow. Scenics, painters are called scenics in the film business. Prop makers, set dressers, hair, makeup. They're two separate jobs. Wardrobe, costumes. There's so many jobs, and that it takes a lot of people to make the project come to life. The director isn't just sitting behind that camera by themselves. And, frankly, I don't even do this. When I watch a movie, when I watch a TV show, I'm not thinking about 100 people standing behind that camera. Yet that's exactly what happened for every single one of those TV shows and movies that we love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're pulled into the dynamics of the film. You're not really seeing all the moving parts, but without them, that doesn't become something that people can then experience and enjoy, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I see how, your division is something that's really needed for these places, because, they're not going to go out and check out all these places and everything else. But I wanted to say one thing about the location that you found. That also gives Ohio security. So if they have that in another movie and they're not going to redesign a new layer, they're like, well, we want to use that again.
Sure.
So then they'll come back, right?
Yep.
So that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's, and the one other selling point that we have in Ohio is that it's not overshot. So what you just said is what happens in every place I've been. If you get overshot, then that's an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So locations become popular, if they're unique locations. Now, NASA Plumbrook is so unique. It's very rare that a scene comes up that can utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally only been in one movie. However, there are locations, and this happened quite a bit in New York, and in my formative years, again, scouting New York, where it's been so shot that, people shy away from it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But in Ohio, that is not an issue yet. We have had 300 projects shoot in Ohio, and that's a lot of production, but it's not so much that everything's been in a movie a million times over.
It's not overused.
No,
That's
it isn't.
nice.
But here's the other aspect of that, right? So we're presenting Ohio, spotlighting Ohio in these, giant tentpole action movies. Also some high-profile, Oscar award-winning, character-driven movies too. So we kind of run the gamut, every budget level, local filmmakers. It's a whole ecosystem here. The other aspect of this, though, is the residual, value of it, right? So once you've established these high-profile movies that become, kind of a cultural phenomenon, then you create film tourism value out of that, right? So you look at Mansfield, right? So Mansfield has built a film tourism industry out of one movie to the point where it actually saved a prison from demolition, right? So Mansfield Reformatory appears in Shawshank Redemption. It's now been in several other movies that are also high profile since then. But the other part of it is, $3, $4, $5 million a year in film tourism coming out of that. I went to the 30th anniversary of Shawshank 2 years ago. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people showed up for it. It was incredible to see.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of working now as president of the Film Commission, what are some things that go into that with the planning and things like that?
Right. So we have 3 missions, right? So obviously the core mission is to bring spending to Northeast Ohio to create jobs, right? So two parts of that mission. How do we do that? So we leverage our relationships with studios and producers. So, my former life, that's where it comes in handy. Obviously, when I'm talking to studios and producers, I have the shorthand, what they're looking for, the terminology, the understanding of how the business works, how the puzzle gets put together before production, what's attractive to producers and studios in pitching Northeast Ohio and what they're looking for. Then the next part of it, though, is that tool that we use, right? So the production incentive tool. And so that's where we work with the state and work very closely to make that tool as attractive as possible, because there are so many other jurisdictions. 106 countries around the world have a tax incentive. Well, we need to stand out. We need to be competitive against all those other, because it's not that the location, the architecture is specific to us and we're only going to get movies that are stories in Ohio. We're trying to compete for stories that happen all across the world, right? We've stood in as Germany, we've stood in as England, we've stood in as, believe it or not, Los Angeles for some storylines. So always about keeping up with what everybody else is doing, making sure that our policies, our practices, our application process, our review process is efficient, streamlined, and competitive. So that's our second mission. And then the third one is that education piece. So training and knowing what the industry is looking for in the crew that they hire, knowing what's coming down the pike, having a hand on the pulse of what is AI going to do. And nobody knows. Let's put that out there. Obviously, there is going to be an impact somehow. Is it an efficiency impact? Is it a replication impact of crew? Right now, it's not. Now, in posts, there are some post jobs that are being affected already. But always understanding what's coming down the pike and how this puzzle gets put together. So that's our comprehensive, 3-mission view of what we do at the Film Commission. And then, as a byproduct of that, being efficient about how we present this information to both Ohioans so that they can get trained up, filmmakers coming to Ohio, and putting it in an efficient one-stop shop so that everybody can come to our website and source all this information so that they make the process of filmmaking easier, hiring crew easier, hiring vendors easier, and crew has an easier experience of getting jobs. So that's kind of what we do all in one fell swoop.
I know I've been to some of your, I forget how you call it, your meetups.
The networking mixers, yes.
Yeah, the networking mixers. I've been to one of those, and that was really great to talk to everyone. But for anyone who's viewing and wants to join or learn or get some training, what's the best way for them to learn about it?
Yeah, go to clevelandfilm.com. I mean, we really do compile resources, and we try to make as much of it as free as possible, right? So our workshop that we just ran, that was free. It was an all-day intensive. It cost us money to do it, but we provide it to the community for free. And learn this business. So a lot of folks think, well, if I want to work in the film business, I need to know how to use a camera, so I need that training. Frankly, that's a little piece of it. You think it's a visual medium, so you need to know a camera. There's 4 jobs on every movie that touch a camera. There are 140 jobs that never touch a camera. So the training is about understanding the business itself, understanding how the business functions, the paperwork, the scheduling, the budgeting, all that stuff. That's the information that we train on. So knowing that, and knowing that, when you're going out for education, educate yourself a little bit before you choose how you get that education, because, just like any industry, there are people that aren't, going to be upfront about what expertise they have and what they don't have. You don't know what you don't know. So know that this is a business that functions, beyond the idea of how do you set up a shot, how do you compose a scene, how do you edit. That's all good information, but then know that you have to build upon that with other training after you've learned that basic concept. To get involved, sign up for our free e-newsletter. We, every month, are pushing out information, resources, training workshops, what's going on in the industry. There's a grants and funding page on our website. We don't fund, film commissions don't fund projects, but if you're a filmmaker learning, just trying to get your project done, there are grants out there for you, and we've pulled them all into one source on our website. And then membership. So part of what we do, we're a not-for-profit. We're not government. It says commission in our name, but honestly, we have to go and pass around the hat to raise the funds for everything that we do, and that's hard. It's getting harder. So helping us, one way to do that is membership, and our membership comes with a lot of value to it. So our memberships are $100, or there's tiers, but $100 level gets you free screenings to major motion pictures, the ones that you want to go to anyway. Well, it gets you that for free, and last year that was $1,000 worth of screenings, and you got it for $100. And there's other discounts too, but that's all part of memberships, and that's one way of helping us give back to the community and grow this industry and bring more projects here, because we don't get any commission from the projects we bring. We bring them, and then people work and make a living doing it. So it's something we're very passionate about. We're a staff of 5 people, and our mission is to give back to the community, and we need a little bit of community support in order to do that.
So what's your ideal person to walk into one of your seminars or whatever? Would you say that it's anybody with any knowledge of film or any knowledge of the background work, or is it somebody who, you tell me?
Yeah, I mean, it's open to everybody. So anybody that wants to come, we don't turn anybody away, with the exception of this. You have to be 18 or older to work on a film as crew. So for our workshops, it's an 18 or over. But all are welcome. What you do have to have is the ability. Look, if you're working on a crew, it's a 12-hour day. It pays you a lot of money. So those 80% of those jobs that start at $37.76 an hour, that's over $500 a day. A day rate, pretty good day rate for Northeast Ohio. But you need to be able to stand on a set for 12 hours a day. So that's one caveat. There are other jobs in the film business where you don't have to stand, but that is one job that you do.
Sure.
So that's kind of the core training. The post-production jobs obviously are a little bit different than that, and those are also a possibility. There's local production going on in a big way in Northeast Ohio, and that's the great thing, that we've built this ecosystem where we have these high-profile projects coming here, but we also have 13, 15 local production companies that are making really high-end commercials, documentaries, and also features. And one case in point, TRG Multimedia just opened, and their bread and butter has been commercial work. So if you ever watch a Wayfair furniture commercial, they make it right there in Brooklyn, Ohio at TRG. But they've also expanded into scripted production in partnership with Tyler Davidson, who is a local producer, famous producer who's made a lot of really great movies. And they're opening Sundance with a movie called Buddy. And that's a big deal. To be able to be on opening day at Sundance is not a small feat.
Oh, yeah.
So they did a co-production that filmed in Brooklyn at TRG and other spots around Cleveland last summer. And it's premiering this week. So, kudos to them. Another movie called Carousel, also shot in Northeast Ohio last year, is also premiering at Sundance. And, just if you're a local that wants to make a lot of money, but work hard and be passionate and work in a creative industry, this is definitely an industry that there's so much opportunity right now. That's the candidate that we're looking for to come to our workshops.
Nice.
One last fun fact. Could you tell us about any film recommendations or fun facts of what people don't really realize is happening? Any films?
Right, and that's the thing about film. We're basically another industry that people don't think that, is this really an industry? It's a hobby. No, right? Well, this is manufacturing, right? We're manufacturing just like any manufacturing industry, except we're manufacturing films. We're manufacturing TV shows. Our factory isn't, a bricks and mortar factory in downtown Cleveland. It's wherever we go. So the Main Street USA where we're filming today is our factory today, and then we move down the street to a house, and that's our factory tomorrow. Case in point for around here, a great movie called All the Bright Places, a young adult novel that did really well, was on the bestseller list, was made in 2018, and it happened in Bath. So if you ever have been to Hale Farm, that's a repeat customer for the film business. A lot of films have been made there, and All the Bright Places starring Elle Fanning was one of them, and it's shot right in your backyard.
That's so cool.
It is nice to be able to say, hey, that was made here, and walk through it and everything. I think, people go to the movies and they see them and then they want to be connected to it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And that being made in Ohio, that connection is there. I mean, I remember when Spider-Man came out and they said it was shot in Cleveland and you could see the Terminal Tower and all that. I mean, I watched that scene so many times just because, being from Cleveland area, I was like, that's so neat to me. I mean, the Terminal Tower, we see it all the time. We go downtown, it's there, and you can see it in a movie. You get to see it go by, and now you get to know, the Christmas Story house, all of those things, Shawshank, all this stuff. That's really neat because you're there. You saw it on the film, and now you get to live it. You get to be there, just like these heroes, just like these characters and these people that you love in the film and you relate to. Now you're a part of it as well. So I think it's fantastic that what you guys are doing here for Ohio and the film industry as well. It's a great opportunity for both.
It is. And, going to that sentiment about, this was shot in my backyard and I want to go out and live it. That's the film tourism that opportunity that I'm talking about.
Sure.
And that exists all over Ohio. It's not just Mansfield. There's a lot of that story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all about what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for joining us and celebrating Northeast Ohio's film history. We'll see you next time.